Welcome to our special program. Now, leaders of the Central Asian countries keep arriving in northwest China's city of Xian. And now let's get some more analysis. We have here in the studio Mr. Rong Ying. Thank you so much for joining us on our special program, Mr. Rong. So we are seeing this very important event, the China Central Asia Summit, kicking off from Thursday. And then leaders from these countries will be paying a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Help us understand the significance of this event.
Well, this event, the first ever China and Central Asian summit, is going to be, I think, or is regarded as one of the most important platform. As a matter of fact, I think my impression is that all the 6 countries are committed to making it the most effective, most successful platform for sub-regional cooperation. More importantly, I think it is the idea, as far I can see, is to coordinate, to build up the existing bilateral foundations of the good relationship, political, economic, to the extent where the cooperation will be upgraded, will be meet the need of the region and I think China as a whole. This is, I think, a very important event, and the significance is going to go beyond the region, where I think is now have seen both opportunities and challenges, I think, for these Central Asian states.
And the relations between China and Central Asian countries have really come a long way over the years, and then they've been trying to expand their ties in different fields. For example, we are seeing momentum being established in trade and economy, as well as infrastructure, and then there's also cultural exchanges and people-to-people exchanges, and education too is a very important aspect of their cooperation. So how do you see the potential of further strengthening these ties?
Yeah, I think the potential lies in the fact that there are first and foremost a huge need, as we discussed, that China has embarked its Chinese approach to modernization by, of course, has successfully lift the poverty by addressing the poverty issues, right? And we are now working very hard to build a full-fledged socialist modernization country, while Central Asian states, Central Asian countries, the 5 ones, have achieved independence 30 years. And of course, the past 30 years, they have tried their very hard, but they're still, I guess, in the process of finding a way, find an approach or road that suits its own development. And that challenge or that issue becomes even more acute in the fact that the region as a whole and the world is undergoing dramatic changes, bringing a lot of uncertainty and challenges for that. So where is the way, where the direction? And of course, I have seen that in the region, diplomacy has been very active. You see, actually, many similar mechanisms, C5+1 and others. But I think among these initiatives, the China Central Asia cooperation stands out most successful in a way that it gives full play the advantages.
Right. And now we're watching live signal from the Xian airport, and Kyrgyz president, his plane has just touched down. President Sadyr Japarov will be attending this China Central Asia Summit in the northwest city of Xian. China is now welcoming in leaders from 5 Central Asian countries. And right now, so far, on Wednesday, we've seen the arrival. CGTN has covered the arrivals of presidents from Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. So again, Mr. Rong, we'll be watching communications with between leaders of China and these 5 Central Asian countries, and then some of them will be paying a state visit to China. What do you expect to be the highlights?
The highlights will be, I think, a kind of a framework or a kind of vision how to make full use of this mechanism, as I said, to ensure the benefits of cooperation and collaboration, win-win cooperation, mutually beneficial cooperation, will in the end bring in tangible results for the development of the region as a whole and substantial, development for the livelihood of the people as a whole. For that, I think there are good work to be done. For example, how to coordinate, how to synergize the development strategies, but more importantly, I think how to give full play of their respective advantages of each country, and in the meantime, coordinate in a way for a holistic region sort of approach for development. That is, I think, should be done, and that can be done because the past 30 years of a relationship between China and Central Asia, and in particular the past 10 years since launching of BRI has laid a very solid foundation politically, economically, and also in terms of connectivities. So the work we are going to do and what we are going to be watching or hoping is that with this gathering, with this event, it will set out the direction, it will lay out the foundation, but more importantly, it will give impetus for the 6 countries, the China plus the 5 countries, to work it together for win-win cooperation. That is the idea. That is something I think we are looking for.
And Mr. Rong, as you mentioned just now, China's path to modernization has created miracles, and then China's now trying to share that experience and apply it to, the different countries in Central Asia, and to make them unique to their countries' circumstances. And now let's get the latest from our reporter Dong Xue. She's following the latest for us from Xian Airport. Dong Xue.
Yes, Maman, as we speak, President Sadyr Japarov of Kyrgyzstan, his presidential flight has touched down and arrived in Xian for the inaugural China Central Asia Summit. Well, there is a similar protocol has rolled out for him by the Chinese side. You can obviously sense the high anticipation all around me. With behind me, you can see the red carpet has rolled out, and we got lovely children and also a very local and traditional dance performance to welcome his arrival. And for the Chinese side, we have a head of cultural and tourism department, as well as a Chinese ambassador to Kyrgyzstan, and also the mayor of or the governor of Shanxi province. They are present here to welcome his arrival. Well, President Japarov is expected to hold bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping, tomorrow. Analysts say multiple deals are expected to be signed right after, which include, cooperation agreements in new energy, e-commerce, high-tech, as well as trade and economic matters under China's Belt and Road Initiative, the framework. Well, on Friday, President Japarov will join the other 5 leaders at the summit and is expected to sign a series of political documents, as well as to elevate the strategic and economic relations with China. Well, in fact, Kyrgyzstan and China's economic relations can be traced back to the 1990s. Our cooperation developed with the 1999 border treaty and the establishment of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in 2001. The two countries established a strategic partnership relations in 2013 and agreed to further deepen this in the following year. Well, Kyrgyzstan shares a more than 1,000 kilometers long borders with Western China from 1992 to 2019. The total trade volume between China and Kyrgyzstan increased almost 180 times. Well, Kyrgyzstan was one of the first countries to support and participate in China's Belt and Road Initiative, which marks its 10th anniversary this year. As you can see, as you might see and hear, the performance behind me is about to start, which means the president will be step out of his flight and welcomed by Chinese officials here at the airport. Well, back to the China and Kyrgyzstan's bilateral relations. Both sides has agreed to deepen industrial cooperation investment in the BRI and to increase regional development in sectors such as digital economy, energy, and agriculture. Well, actually, a couple of days ago, I sat down with the Kyrgyz ambassador to China, where she expressed high expectations for the summit, as well as for increased cooperation through the highly anticipated China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway. She said, and I quote, "It's a project of strategic importance, not only benefiting by bilateral trade, but also Central Asian development as a whole." Mamang.
Wow. Thank you so much, our Dongxue, bringing us the latest from Xian International Airport. And we are hearing deafening sound from this waist drum performance. This is a folk dance originated in Xian. It's about 2,000 years old, and this is a very traditional form of artistic expression, now used to welcome a very important guest. Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov has just touched down in Xian in northwest China, and he will be attending this China Central Asia Summit running from Thursday to Friday, and he'll also be paying a state visit to China at the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. The red carpet is being rolled out, and CGTN is now bringing you up to date on all the preparations in the lead up to the China East Central Asia Summit. This is the inaugural event, certainly with the aim to boost connectivity and exchanges between China and the 5 Central Asian nations. And this is the airplane for Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov. And right now we are seeing live feed from Xi'an, and CGTN has been covering the arrivals of different leaders from the 5 Central Asian countries. So far on Wednesday, we've seen the arrival of presidents of Kazakhstan and Tajikistan. So again, here, Mr. Rong, we understand that the host city, Xi'an, is the capital city of northwest China's Shanxi province. Many places of historic interest are located here, including the world-famous terracotta warriors. And also historically, the city is also one of the most important birthplaces of Chinese civilization and the Chinese nation. We should also bear in mind that it is also the starting point of the ancient Silk Road. So when an ancient diplomat, Zhang Qian, traveled westward from here, reconnecting Chinese civilization and Central Asian civilizations for the first time, the city of Xi'an was really put on the map, a very important starting point of China's connectivity with the rest of the world. So, Mr. Rong, is that why Xi'an was chosen as the city to host this very important inaugural China Central Asia Summit?
Yeah, I think there's no other cities in China that can do better than Xi'an. Definitely, Xi'an is so historical. It's so civilizational, and indeed it's so symbolic in terms of Silk Road. As you rightly said, the ancient Silk Road starts in Xi'an, and also I think in terms of the modern Xi'an, and they are also very much, I think, famous for the cultural diversity, and also I think for the attraction, not only tourism, but also I think cultural exchanges, culturally mutually learning experience. So this is, I think, the very place, the right place for having that kind of event.
And now the door has been opened for Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov's plane, and he will be walking down the aisle in just a moment, we believe. If you've just joined us, this is our special coverage of events in the lead up to the inaugural China Central Asia Summit, which will kick off on Thursday and wrap up on Friday. And right now, we are seeing live feed from Xian International Airport. Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov has just touched down there, and he will be paying a state visit to China at the invitation of the Chinese president. Right, and Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov is now walking down the stairs. And according to our reporter there, this is people working with him, working for him, his convoy. So, Mr. Rome, this China Central Asia Summit will mark the formal establishment of the mechanism of the meeting of the heads of state of China and Central Asia. And then we also mentioned the Belt and Road Initiative just now. Are there any other mechanisms in terms of cooperation between China and the Central Asia region?
Well, I think this is going to be the most important mechanism for cooperation. After all, I think the idea to put in place such a mechanism is to coordinate to the various kind of collaboration, cooperation project bilaterally, and also I think in a regional context. And I think as far as I know, the idea is to identify, several priority areas ranging from transportation, roads, railways, agriculture, minerals, and also I think trade and investment, of course, and last but not least, people-to-people cultural exchanges, which is again increasingly important. So this is, I think, the very purpose of this initiative, of this mechanism. Now with the, I think, opening of this summit, it would certainly start a new beginning and a new era for China and Central Asia cooperation, particularly along the line of practical cooperation, development-oriented cooperation, and a win-win cooperation. So in the end, that would help Central Asia as a whole, and its impact will be felt beyond the region. I think this is the area, this is really the idea why we need to put, I think, to new a mechanism like that for cooperation.
And as we know, China shares borders with 3 out of the 5 Central Asian nations, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. And together, their borders extends as long as 3,000 kilometers. So that being said, the stability and development in that region is also crucial for China's development. And not only in the region, but expanding that a little bit further onto the map for the region as a whole. All right, Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov is descending on the stairs, and he is here paying his first state visit to China, and he's also here to attend the first China Central Asia Summit in Xian. And at the airport, we are seeing Chinese officials welcoming him. We have the head of the Chinese Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Hu Heping, the governor of Shanxi province, Zhao Gang, and the Chinese ambassador to Kyrgyzstan, Du Dewen. So they're certainly there to welcome a very important guest. The president is leading a delegation. He's here with his wife. And we're seeing flower bouquets being presented to him, President Sadyr Japarov. So, Mr. Rome, we mentioned just now that a very important item on the agenda is trade and economy. And figures tell us that the their trade cooperation between China and the 5 Central Asian countries has achieved tangible results since establishing diplomatic ties. For example, trade reached $70 billion in 2022. But of course, there's so much more than just trade and economy. There are other areas that the two sides are trying to deepen their cooperation on and build on past achievements.
True. Yeah, I think certainly trade between China and Kyrgyzstan is, I think, developing very fast, actually exponentially. This is largely because, of course, the potentiality and the between the two sides. I think what's more important, or as we look ahead, I think efforts are being made to ensure that as trade are growing, investment from China will also be growing. That is something I think China and Kyrgyzstan are working very hard on that. And apart from trade and investment, I think also one of the big projects connecting the 3 countries, China, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, the railway, which is very much, I think, welcomed by Kyrgyzstan, is really already, I think, started. That would also help Kyrgyzstan and the region as a whole for development. And last but not least, I always say that people-to-people and cultural exchanges are very important. There are 4, I learned that 4 Confucius institutes and over 10,000 Kyrgyzstan students are learning Chinese. And last but not least, I just said the famous ancient Chinese poet Li Bai was believed to born in today's Kyrgyzstan. So this is again a very interesting and important bond of bringing the 2 countries. There are efforts actually for translation of each other's classical literatures and others. So this is another important area. I mean, between the 2 countries that stands out without the others.
Certainly deep-rooted connectivity in terms of civilization, in terms of culture and economic interaction, of course. And right now we are seeing live feed from airport in Xian. Kyrgyz President Sadyr Japarov has just landed there, and he will be paying a state visit to China, and he will also be attending the first China Central Asia Summit from Thursday and Friday. So, Mr. Rong, in terms of the interaction between China and the 5 Central Asian countries, expanding bilateral cooperation a little bit further, how do you define this unprecedented depths and strengths and also breadth of cooperation?
Yeah, as we have been discussing that the relationship certainly has very strong politically. For the past 3 decades, I think China and the Central Asia states, countries, 5 countries, have mutually supporting each other on issues of critical concern, core interest, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and others. And from the viewpoint of China, whenever either on the questions of Taiwan, Tibet, and Xinjiang, and human rights issues, we always are very appreciate and count on the support and understanding of this state. And then, of course, in the meantime, China also have extended a very strong, substantial support on this Central Asian state for their independence, for defending their sovereignty, and also, I think, their own rights for development. So politically, very strong. Economically, as we have discussing, they have been growing very strong and strong, particularly after the launching of BRI. And culturally, we are exploring, we are pushing based on solid foundation, long history, in the context where I think China and Central Asian states are all old civilizations. So it is definitely the need, possibility for mutually exchanges and mutually learning. This is again one of the, I think, visions or ideas of BRI for mutual exchange and mutual learning, civilizational dialogue, civilizational mutually learning. This is also very much important. So what we are doing, or this summit is going to do, is to bring these advantages, these factors together, to translate into concrete, specific areas for cooperation that would, in the end, that would help address the Central Asia and, to some extent, China for development, and also security issues. Security is a concern.
Sure.
All in all, I think the region has been in the past years suffered from three evils. This, by the way, is also one of the important subject issue on the agenda. But China believes, I think rightly, that to address the security issues, to address these issues, need to address the root causes,
Sure.
the development issues. This is something I think
Important neighbors, long tradition, and deep bonds, as you mentioned, and then these are being renewed and revived in this new era. Thank you so much, Mr. Rong Ying, for your analysis. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for our special coverage this hour. I'm Wang Mengmang. Stay with us for more news coming up on CGTN.